Hey, folks, it's Lunch with Mal. I'm trying again with the whole streaming to Facebook thing. I'm a little bit more prepared for it today. I had it all ready to post, and now I lost that window. Okay, there we are. Found it. Apparently I'm semi prepared to do this. All right. Seems to be working, I think. Yeah, look at that. All right. Lunch with Mal is luncheon. Now I just need to get the link that I can put in to my personal, and we're good to go. All right. How's everyone doing today? It's officially summer in the north, just in case there was any doubt about it. I'm not sure if, for those of you who live in the north, but there's parts of New Brunswick that got up to 44 Celsius with the heat index taken, sorry, the humidity index taken into effect, which apparently is different than the heat index. I don't know. There's a lot of new indexes, or at least new to me indexes. Yeah, it was hot yesterday. Let's put it that way. And we don't have air conditioning in the place we're renting, not yet. At least we're going to have it on Saturday. Yeah, Saturday. We're getting that, so I'm pretty stoked. All right, made that post. Ta-da. So who's here? Say hi. Let me know you're around. It's always nice. It's always nice to see folks saying hi. And I'm just going to make an everyone post. At everyone. Hey, Rebecca. How are you doing? It's always nice to hear actually that the people watch later. I wasn't something like that I actually really thought happened that much, but I'm pretty stoked that it does happen. I think it's cool. People will come around later and watch. And hey, Monique, how are you doing? I cannot get this to load nicely. Oh, there's subtitles. They must be auto-generated by Facebook, which is super cool. That's Pippa said that. And hi, CM Mason. I have to keep I have these two chats are separate the way I'm doing this right now. So I have to kind of, if you see me like looking up here, I'm looking at like the other chat. Yeah, I'm guessing a lot of other people probably had pretty warm days too. I heard that around North America, it was overall pretty toasty this last little bit. Here, there, and everywhere. So I'm guessing we're not the only ones, obviously, that had that. But although I heard the West Coast was actually kind of cool. So I guess yay. Yay for that. I don't know, I guess all depends on what you want, eh? So yeah. This has been an interesting month. I'm sure many people who are been actively working on publishing or getting new books out or all those sorts of things are like, wow, this has been a month. 55 Fahrenheit. Dang, that's cold. 89 Fahrenheit. So 89 Fahrenheit is right around 30 degrees Celsius for those of you who are curious. 40 up once you get up over the 40s Celsius, you're like 105, something in that neighborhood. So you're definitely bumping up there. Trying to see if I can get Facebook to give me the comments consistently. It's really bad at showing me comments on the Facebook group side. Oh well, I'll do my best. 3 scheduled for July with 3 pen names. Damn, Monique, that's going hardcore. I'm pretty sure you're in KU, but I'm curious if you are or not. I know that KU has been kind of extra tricky these days because it seems like Amazon is giving less rank boost to KU borrows, but it's actually kind of hard to tell with rank being calculated so infrequently. What that means is like if you do a release, Amazon doesn't let us double dip our rank on release, so you only get the rank boost when the person made the pre-order. So your pre-orders don't give you any rank boost on release. It's orders that day, and the days thereafter, of course, and then all of the KU borrows, and they don't seem to be as big anymore. So people are getting kind of worried about like what actual kind of juice they're getting out of Amazon. Um, and it's to me, it's making KU feel even less viable. Is that the word I'm looking for? Enticing than it has been in a long time. Um, I'm looking at like some of my ads recently for one of my omnibuses, and it's an omnibus series. So it's four omnibuses, and each one has four books in it. So they're their own separate series. So I can get read through in that, and I'm running ads to it right now, and I'm getting 3 to 4 times more revenue from sales than I am from KU. And I'm starting to look at this thinking like, man, if I didn't have KU at all, and even like a fraction of the KU readers actually picked up the book and just bought it instead, I think I'd make more money. Um, so I'm really like looking at KU lately and being like, Amazon, you gotta like up your game here. You're kind of shit in the bed, quite honestly. And unless they like improve that, I'm not I'm not so sure that KU is going to continue to be viable. Um, and a lot of people have already come to that decision, but I'm thinking more broadly speaking. CM Mason says, I had a sale and it felt like the rank boost slowed to a crawl compared to normal purchases. Yeah. Yeah. It really does feel like that, doesn't it? It feels like what we're getting out of um, like the tails don't even seem to exist anymore. And I think a big part of that is that it's a lot of the sort of, to use a term somewhat incorrectly, the organic promotion that we get from Amazon is based on rank. Rank, it's kind of weird. Like rank is a reflection of sales, but also it will then drive Amazon activities. Amazon putting our books into emails and stuff like that only happens if we have good rank. Um, what they're doing with this infrequent calculation of rank that they're doing now is only perennial bestsellers are getting this sort of boost now because they're the only ones that have good high ongoing rank, which a lot of us don't have. We have good rank during releases and promotions and heavy ad spend and stuff like that, but on average individual books of ours may not have super high rank, so that makes things pretty tricky. Monique says one in KU, it's romance, the other two are nonfiction. Okay, so not in KU there. So what time, when in July are you planning on releasing them? I'm just purely out of curiosity. Curious what your thought process is on what you have going on there. I'm going to be doing one late July, early August. It kind of depends on where my editor is going to be with it and where I am with her edits when she's done. And how long it takes my beta readers to get through it too, because this book was written over 4 years and it had a lot of changes made to it. And I really am worried that there's going to be inconsistencies. So if it takes longer, it takes longer. But I'll be like really close to the finish line with it anyway. One of the things I was thinking about though when I was looking at what kind of opportunities do we have right now? Because every time one door closes, another door opens, and I kind of like to look at things like that. Like, okay, KU's slowing down. What other ways are there out there that we can sell our books or save money? Is another possibility as well. And I think that one thing that was kind of interesting is BookBub is now getting to the author website business, and you can get a website from them that showcases all your books and does reader magnet landing pages and email collection for like $5.99 a month, I think was the price. I set one up. It was actually pretty straightforward and simple to do it. And you can even just like search for your books on Amazon, and it will then import all of the details right into their website. So you don't have to worry about copying and pasting blurbs and covers and all that jazz. So that was something that I thought was kind of neat. That could be worth investigating for people, because I know some people are probably spending like $30, $40, $50 a month on their website. And that kind of stuff adds up, we start thinking of all the different subscriptions we have. So it's less of an opportunity to make money, but more of an opportunity to save money. But maybe it's going to let you do something more exciting with your money. I also feel like in-person book selling events from people I've been talking to lately seem to be doing like better than ever. I know this one author friend of mine, She's only got like 2 books out now, I think, and she sells out when she goes to events. Um, Now she's doing something kind of different. She's doing Filipino fantasy, so like using like Filipino mythology. Um, I think they're romances. Yeah, yeah, they're romances, and that might be an angle that's really enticing and interesting. But I thought that was pretty neat to see. Like, she's like, I don't know how many books to bring to events because I keep selling out. But she's like, but I don't want to buy too many and then be in the hole because I got too many books. So um, there are still opportunities out there, and it's a cat. I thought someone was knocking at the door, but it's a cat in the litter box. Some of them are not good at actually like pawing at the litter. They just paw at the side of the litter box. Pretty sure I know which one it is. He's not the brightest Schnooky. Um, so I'm always thinking about that. Like, what are opportunities that are out there? What things can we do? I still think that, to be honest, one of our best opportunities right now as authors is French translation. I think there's very little out there that beats it or comes close to it in terms of like the cost. If you're willing to do AI translation, the cost that it takes to get a book translated and then get it up is shockingly low. And another interesting thing is you could take your book, translate the French, and have the French version in KU and not have the English version of your book in KU because they are different ASINs. So you're not dealing with that whole, it can't, if it's in KU in one version, it has to be in KU in all of them. It's actually a different version of the book. Yeah, I know, Monique. I'm kind of feeling the same way too. Like, I normally go to so many different events throughout the year. Now that we're in Canada and I am loath to be traveling to the US that much, um, it's uh it's it's a whole situation. Like, it's kind of a thing. I'm bummed about it, to say the least. So so you got the 10th, 17th, and 31st for July money. Which one's the KU romance? I was If it were me, I would do the KU romance in one of the later 2 slots, probably the 17th actually. Because historically July gets better than June. June is one of the lowest points of the year. There's 2 markedly low points in the year for book sales, and one of them is end of and like the latter half of ish of February, and then June, especially. Basically, Mother's Day until July 4th weekend tends to be a low stretch as well. Okay, that should give you some good run through the high part of the summer. You're past the July 4th weekend, so that's the important part. If you're focused especially on U.S. sales, but I'm always eager to I'm always eager to look for like those bumps and try to make something out of it. So, if you're not, if you don't have anything coming out for other folks around that mid to late July increase where people start like chilling out, getting into the summer vibe, relaxing, reading a book on the beach kind of thing. All the rush at the beginning of summer is kind of done. You can always run sales on existing books. You could take like a longer series, make the first 2 books 99 cents to try to get some more people reading through into your funnel on that one. A lot of things that you can do with that. It's a new series, and the first 3 books are a month apart. Awesome. Is this book 1 of of the series, or are you past book 1 now? Also curious if anybody else has things going on right now that they think are good opportunities for them or for writers in general. Book 2. Yeah, so you got to keep the momentum going then as much as anything else right now, which makes sense. I hopefully the AI can understand me well enough to make good subtitles. Jill's looks like Jill's watching on Facebook now. Um, I what was I gonna say? My brain not be braining fully here. I got off track. I started thinking about tubing because we're trying to plan a tubing outing this weekend. I saw a comment from Jill and I started thinking about like tubing on a lake versus tubing on a river. Which do we want to do? I'm not super keen about tubing on a lake. Tubing on a river is a lot more fun, but all the river tubing events around here are really long. They're like 4 to 5 hours. And I kind of just want to do a 2 to 3 hour tubing event. That is completely aside from everything else. Pippa said, I've heard that Pinterest is good for LLMs. I'm teaching myself how to use it. Um, when you say LLM, I think large language model, and I'm guessing that's not what you're thinking, Pippa. I'm curious what you mean by LLM on Pinterest. I do think Pinterest is good for a lot of different types of marketing. So I think it makes sense to use it. It can actually just be like a great way to get a lot of organic traffic flowing to your site, or just sort of flowing to your author social media or something like that to start building up your bucket. I know things, especially like tarot and stuff like that, do really well with Pinterest. I know people who do like nonfiction tarot stuff and make their living with Pinterest ads. Hey Len, how's it going? Oh, you're doing large language model. I'm not sure what you mean then. I've heard Pinterest is really good for large language models. I'm teaching myself how to use it. I think I need more information to know what you mean by that. Like how to use Pinterest? Like how is it good for LLM? I'm intrigued. So while I wait for an answer on that, that's awesome, Len. Good job. I'm starting to plan out the rest of my year for releases. I'm actually thinking I might dust off my release spreadsheet because I think that'll be pretty cool. But I think the thing that I'm absolutely going to do this year is this year is going to be the year where I pull all my books out of KU. I think all of them. I think I'm going to pull out of KU. It's not written in stone yet. And the newest releases I'm doing will go into KU for the readers who've read me in KU all along. But I think it's definitely time to pull books out of KU. And then I've also got one series that I'm working on some cover concepts for, that I got back from an edit from a hybrid publisher, and I'm going to be looking at either doing a Kickstarter for them or putting them up on my website as like ongoing exclusives, just my website. But I really like the idea of doing direct sales exclusives that aren't available any other place. Not all of your books, obviously, but just some of them. I think that can actually be really useful for people talking. Sometimes I have a really hard time like feeling when I hear other voices. But I seem to be really good for a way to like drive people to your website, get them used to doing direct purchases from you. So you get them going on direct sales to this one exclusive series on your website. And then they're much more likely to come back to you for more direct sales stuff. Sort of like it's like an added push to get them over the hump of getting into direct sales by making it this exclusive thing. So it's something that I'm thinking I'm going to do. At the same time, I'm like, but if I do a cool cover and all this, like, shouldn't it just be a Kickstarter? But the tricky thing is that we're in Canada now, and running Kickstarters is much more complicated because shipping stuff to the States, which is where the majority of the purchases are going to be, is a lot more expensive. So this is long lasting. If you make a pin of the 10 best British cozy mysteries and link it to a blog on your website, A will get excited when people who've read one of those books will be recommended to the others. I'm curious how LLMs tie into that, though, Pippa. Because LLMs are, I mean, do you mean, when you say LLM, do you mean like the search tools like Grok and ChatGPT? The Yogi sites will put over one of your books and be recommended to the others. It's interesting. Because if you're talking about Pinterest recommendation algorithm for recommending pins to the people, that's not an LLM. CM Mason says, I'm thinking about my next audiobook outside of ACX using Kickstarter to fund it. I ultimately want to use it to move into direct sales. You can absolutely do that too. I did that in 2019. I had a series of 7 books, and my narrator was just taking forever to get these books done. I did tons of books with her, and she just kind of really I think she just started to realize that she didn't like or didn't want to be doing a lot of narrating. Like it would take her like 7 months to get a book done. Actually, I think the last one took her longer, and she delivered to me even after I canceled it, and then told me that I didn't cancel. It was a whole thing. I paid her for it. I never used the audio, and I paid her for it. Anyway, so I wanted to get better audio, all the same narrator all the way through the series. I wanted to get it done fast, so I did a Kickstarter. Paid like $22,000 on the Kickstarter. The audiobook narration was only like 14 or something like that. And then we put the book up on Audible, and actually we put it wide as well and made another 20. No, I did Audible exclusive for 90 days, made another 20,000 on it, and then made it wide. It's probably made like another 20,000 since then. But on top of that, the omnibus edition of the 7 books, because you have to put all 7 books into one omnibus to do them like that on Audible. That made like $20,000 too, and that was like a year after the series was done. So it's definitely viable. And that Kickstarter we ran that did $22,000, lockdown, COVID lockdown started halfway through that Kickstarter, which was super exciting. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Um, you're saying that basically it's a way to it's a SEO game, because you're just getting more content. Yes, that is a thing, but that's not really related to LLM and not LLM. It happened before. That was a huge strategy before LLM search became a thing as well. Um, I'm not sure if I can think of any meaningful way LLM would have changed that. I mean, I guess it might change just based on the way that LLMs work. It might change the types of content that get picked up. So I can see that being a thing. Um, so yeah, kind of where I'm at right now. I'm definitely enjoying summer. Now that it's finally arrived, I was out in the deck for a while. Jill and I have had 3 or 4 beer summits on the back deck, with cheese and crackers and beer. So that's been a nice thing now that it's finally arrived up here. It's funny, the further north you go, the more you like savor and like make sure you bring like every second of enjoyment out of summer, because you're just like, it's gonna be gone. It's gonna be cold before too long. Um, so that's been something that's been going on for us. But yeah, it's also been really nice for me to get back into writing and to really be enjoying writing. Um, and That's something I think that can be tricky for a lot of us authors when things aren't going quite so well. Because like I said, this is one of the lower points of the year. It's always a little bit more stressful, and especially with the Amazon stuff that's going on. Plus the A10 algorithm changes for AMS. AMS is now behaving differently. Search itself on Amazon is behaving differently, and search is like one of our biggest drivers of traffic. Um, it can kind of get discouraging doing this job, and then when it gets discouraging doing this job, the writing itself becomes harder. So it's it's an ongoing struggle, of which there is no surefire solution. It's an ongoing struggle to find the motivation to write when some of the elements of the business aren't going quite as well. But I think one of the things I try to remind myself and to get myself in the habit of doing is, um, that as like whenever even when things aren't selling well, I know that if I write, I'm building up product that I can then use to market later on. And then on top of that, even when you have releases that don't go super well, that's like a product that you have forever. So even though the launch didn't go so well, the tail wasn't as long as you wanted, that doesn't stop you from doing new release activities down the road. Running a sale to it, doing like a couple years down the road, maybe you do a custom covers, you make the omnibus edition. That product that you've created has so many marketing opportunities that you can still use it for. And it's really good not to lose sight of that. Like I just mentioned before with that audiobook one I did. Like I said, it was a year after the series was done that I made this omnibus edition and made the combined audiobook edition, and ended up with an additional $60,000 worth of revenue. Um, there was some expenses in there for the Kickstarter, of course, and paying the narrator and whatnot, but made all of that money, and that was in addition to the actual releases of the individual titles that had happened years and years. In some cases, at that point, um, I guess it was only the series only took me 3 years to write, but so it was. But a lot of the revenue I made from that was as long as 3 years after the series had been finished, and it's still like one of my best-selling series. And that 7 book omnibus, I tell you, I thought I was going to only have that 7 book omnibus um, up for just a little while, and then we would take it down. I still have it up. The 7 book omnibus still rocks. It's still out there. Still making decent amount of money. It's like almost always in my like top 5 books that we're selling, and I haven't even run ads for it in a year and a half at this point. So it's definitely got opportunity just coming out of my yin yang. I can absolutely go and run fresh ads to it, probably finding fresh audiences and that sort of thing as well. Also, the ad experiment I did where I fired up 14 different ads all to book one of a given series has been going fairly well. A number of them have petered out, so I'm playing around with them to see if I can bring them back to life. Because it's definitely an Amazon audience switch that's caused them to peter out. They've not even scratched the surface of the available audience that they have. So I just have to futz with them to get them to find the right audience. But they're overall, the ads that I'm running are about at 70% ROI, which is pretty good considering that they're all fairly new and we are in June. And I think so far this month, we're on track to be about 45 to 50% higher than we were last month for royalties. So that's super awesome. I also, for like the first time in like, I kid you not, probably for the first time in 2 or 3 years, I looked at ACX numbers, and like my direct sale ACX books are still bringing in like $500 to $800 a month. So I was pretty stoked about that. Like, without having done a release in 4 years, I'm still making that. And we also have books with direct with Audible and through Tantor. So only 12, yeah, 12 of like the 40 some odd books that I have are direct. 12 of the 40 some audiobooks I have are direct. So it's actually a pretty nice chunk of change just coming from that smaller set of audiobooks that get no marketing. So it's always encouraging to see that and think like, okay, there is still opportunity here. There's a really long tail on a lot of this stuff. If you could just sort of keep like general levels of interest going into your works, and you've got really good cross sell and branding between all of your books, you can actually have like some exceptionally long tails on a lot of the things that you're doing. Amy says, such a good point about a meh launch and still being more IP to add to your portfolio. Yeah. Thank you, Amy. I'll put this one. This one I can put up for the folks who are over on the Facebook side to see. I've been told actually that I've got this reputation as like one of the few people in the business of helping authors who kind of tells it like it is. A lot of times people try to sugarcoat it or try to sell you on there always being these amazing opportunities, regardless of what's happening outside of it. I'm not saying that everybody does that. I actually don't listen to a lot of the content that other people produce around helping authors or just talking about things in the author biz, actually, because I don't want to accidentally like lift any of their ideas or their concepts. I try to get most of my education outside the author sphere, partially just because like when it comes to like Facebook advertising and AMS advertising and stuff like that, authors are like a drop in the bucket. There are these massive industries built around Facebook advertising and AMS advertising that have their whole own ecosystems and analysis and study of how all these things work that authors rarely are exposed to because we kind of sort of hang out in our own little zone. But a lot of what applies outside of author land definitely applies, or what can be learned outside of author land definitely applies to author land. I think part of that helps me with my viewpoint, because when these people talk about stuff, they talk about business assets and IP that you own, like you mentioned, Amy, and they talk about like how you can then leverage this down the road, or you can make plans that go years down the road for how you're going to leverage different IP and build products around it and stuff like that. A lot of times, authors, we don't get into that. We don't think about how we're building, a 10, 15, 20-year career path. We're just kind of like, we're just riding the wave of the next release and stuff like that. And that's where, I've been there too. And I still remember the event that caused me to shift my mindset from doing that. It was 2018. And at that point of the year, I had released 38 books. And I was at NINC in Florida, and I talked to an author who that year had released 2 books and made the same amount of money that I did. Well, same amount of royalties that I did. Now, releasing a book is not cheap, right? Covers, editors, all that sort of thing. I was doing custom photo shoots. So not only were our royalties the same, my amount of work and my expenses were astronomically higher than hers. And I thought to myself, I am doing this wrong. Now, before I poo-poo myself too much, I do think that one of my competitive advantages has been the volume of books that I have. And I think there's quantity has a quality all of its own. I think is how the saying goes. I think that actually definitely applies um, to my books. But at the same time, it is also kind of like, was there a better way I could have done that? Was there a sweet spot I could have found where I could have made the same money with lower expenses and therefore had a higher bottom line? And that could have helped me weather the 4 year burnout that I went through after producing all those books. Would that have made it so I didn't have a 4 year burnout after writing all those books? It's hard to say. Um, but yeah, I do really like having like a silver lining outlook. I'm like um, Jill and I chat. We were actually just chatting the other day about manifesting, and I was encouraging Jill to do more manifesting because she hasn't done it quite as much lately as she has in the past. And she looked at me and says, "You don't even believe in manifesting. Like, why would you tell me to do that?" And I said, "I believe that manifesting mentally orients you in the right direction because you focus on the things that you want to do and you focus on the results and the future that you're going to have when you achieve the things you really want to achieve." And that while I don't believe that there's maybe any like, I don't believe that the universe is a conscious thing that you're going to then be able to manage. Like, there's people who believe you can manifest a bicycle if you really believe in it. Like, it'll just appear beside you. Um, and I don't obviously don't believe anything like that unless somehow the bicycle is able to cross universes and there's like a parallel universe to ours where there's a bicycle. But actually, my daughter had this amazing discussion about parallel universes and how there probably aren't any directly parallel universes to ours. But anyway, that's a whole other topic that was quite exciting. It had to do with the fact that actually how they statistically start to cancel each other out. Um, Actually, crazy science segue for all of you. So we all know that light travels from a light source to us in basically a straight line. But what was posited at one point was that light actually also takes all other available paths between these 2 points. And the same thing's actually kind of true for electrons to a certain extent. Um, and so that means that sometimes light is traveling faster than the speed of light. Sometimes it's traveling slower than the speed of light. Sometimes it's traveling forward in time. Sometimes it's traveling backward in time for all of the light to take every possible path, like including random corkscrews through the air between me and my light source. They all happen. All paths happen. The interesting thing, though, is that, and they've actually done a lot of like actual physical studies on this, and they've actually been able to see by blocking out certain parts of a light's path, the light does take the other paths, which is actually how you get weird things like sundogs. They're actually an artifact of that sort of thing. Or sometimes when in certain places you see the sun twice, that's because the light, the additional path is not being properly canceled out, or there's some sort of phenomenon that causes it to be canceled out. But that's what happens. All the other paths cancel each other out, and only the ones that come straight towards you don't get canceled out by each other. So anyway, so all probable things happen. Some of them just cancel the other ones out, and then the most probable ones are the ones that don't get canceled out by the others. Crazy, wild thoughts to have. Oh, hey, Lloyd. It's nice to see you. It's nice to have folks who watch the recording a lot of times show up in person. I always like that. I also always like knowing that people do watch the recording because sometimes we only have like 20 or 30 people watching. I'm just like, there's not that many folks here. But then I find out like, lots of other people watch too. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm doing a good thing here. So yeah, I do think that there's always a silver lining. And I do think that we still live in the golden age of publishing, and that we shouldn't lose sight of that. It is also the most competitive age of publishing, which is difficult. But like from a uplifting all the people standpoint, I love the fact that we as authors are producing just an unimaginable amount of super awesome literature, and that even if we don't become like the next Hugh Howey or something like that, living on a boat in wherever he's currently living on a boat, that we still wrote stories that touch someone. I think whether you might not have gotten it yet, but every author gets those letters, those messages from people that are like, I was having a super hard time with XYZ, and reading your books got me through it. I have people who've written me from Afghanistan saying, I'm out here in the stand, things are really hard, but the thing I look to at the end of duty rotation, I think is what it's called, is reading your books. So there's that sort of thing makes it worth it. And when there's times when the sales aren't as good, and I feel like, why am I doing all of this? I think about those people. I think about the people who've written me and said, like, I was in a super dark place, and your books helped me a lot to get through that. That I know for a fact there are people who are alive today who would not be alive today if it wasn't for the books I'd written. And at least in some part, I played a part in that, and that makes it worth it to me as well. So, if you're a writer and you can't stop yourself from writing books, and sometimes you get discouraged about the financial business side of writing books, like really do think about your the why that you had before you started doing this, and then also think like what opportunities could there be. I've been doing things this one particular way for so long. Um, I don't like the kind of result I get from it anymore. Is there another way I could do it? Could I do it? Um, with a different retailer? Could I try some of these things like the reading apps that are kind of popping up? I don't think any of them have taken off hugely yet, but you never know, they might. Or you might get to be a big fish in a small pond on certain reading apps, something like that. Is there an opportunity out there for you to do things in a way that you haven't done them before? I think we shouldn't lose sight of that. Monique, I missed your comment, Monique, before Monique. I forgot this. I don't actually know how to make an omnibus after all this time. I'm a little ahead on books, so I'm going to research it this weekend. Basically, you just combine the books into one. Depending on how you do your chapters, it can get a little bit tricky because you might need to make it so that your heading 1 level is your book titles, and then your heading 2 level becomes the chapter titles. Different pieces of software and different ways of organizing this, but you kind of need to make a hierarchy of chapters to do it nicely. But lots of software can do that actually automatically for you, and then you end up with just a bigger book. You can do print editions for your omnibuses as well. They do, depending on the kind of paper you want to use, have to be about under 830 pages. Most of my omnibuses are 6x9, and they're just barely under that 830 page limit. If you do white paper, you can get more pages in an omnibus edition than you can in with cream paper. And I call them, most people call them box sets. I call them omnibuses because I'm pedantic. Yes, I really agree with this. Seeing comments from readers definitely hits you in the feels. Amy says, yes, I feel it's part of my mission as a storyteller to provide escape and reprieve for others, helping I get stuck in my head about some aspect of the business. That's great. I'm glad that you have that thought process going on, and that's definitely something I do as well. I also think one interesting side note, by the way, about when I saw this video on YouTube, I remembered I wanted to talk about Day Lunch with Mel, is about imposter syndrome. I follow this guy on YouTube, and I followed him for some time. I've watched his videos off and on for ages. I'm not a gun enthusiast, and most of his content's gun related. So I've more seen his DIY home improvement stuff when it pops up in my feed. But his YouTube channel is 18 years old. His original one, he's got several. His biggest channel has 4.4, no, 6. So I think it was over 6 million followers. I can't remember. Across all of them, he's got 8 or 9 million followers. So he's like not a small YouTube guy. His average videos get like more views than like primetime network television do, kind of thing. So he does well on the tube. You watch some of the content he makes later in the day in his career, and he's just making this amazing content. Like he's building a massive gun range and like using dynamite to make a better road down to the lake where he wants his friends to hang out with him, in their RVs and that sort of thing. And I mean, also business reasons as well, but really a lot of it's just like if only his friends hung out with him, he'd be perfectly happy, I think. Anyway, he was talking about when he got started in YouTube, and he's like, when I got started, if you had 1 million followers, you were amazing. You were like some sort of like godlike celebrity. And he's like, and then I hit 1 million followers. He's like, well, I'm just like a regular guy. And he felt afraid to let his viewers know that he was just a regular guy. And that was actually one of the biggest sort of mental things he had to deal with. And really what it comes down to is he was talking about imposter syndrome, right? And here he is, a YouTuber who is buying like an abandoned ranch in Texas and ripping down buildings and building. He's building new houses, and it's so trivial that he's barely even putting it in his videos. Like, oh yeah, we built a house this past week, kind of thing. Like he's doing so much big stuff. They're going cave diving and like excavating caves to make them bigger and stuff like that. Just crazy shit they're doing. He paid like 10 people to hang out with him in a cave and dig it out by buckets for an entire week. Just like crazy stuff like that. And he's still afraid that his viewers are going to realize that he's just a regular guy and then stop watching his videos. And I thought that was interesting, an interesting take on the issue of imposter syndrome that we all have. And that ties back into, we're all just regular guys and gals and non-binary pals. We're just regular folk just telling stories. And we think that our readers don't know that. And that's why they want to read our books, but that's not the case. They know that we're just regular folks. And that's why they want to read our books, because we're people just like them telling stories that they can relate to. And that they're going to hit them in the feels, that are going to make them maybe have a better day or see the world in a new light, or both, or just escape for a while. And that's the real value in what we're doing. And we're doing it for us and we're doing it for them. And being able to do this as a business is an added bonus. And it's always been feast or famine, and it will always continue to be feast or famine. But at the end of the day, it's because we're storytellers and we just have this passion for telling stories. Len says, I know I can use a reassessment for how I release things. Outlets, number of releases, other writing outlets. I'm not sure if I know what you mean by that. I'm kind of curious. Like, do you mean like for assessing the release of the thing, for assessing past releases, or for assessing how you do releases? I think you mean how you do releases, which I guess makes sense. Yeah, reassessing that can work. Yeah, Vellum probably would have something like that. And I bet you so does Atticus. I do it live, or not live. I do it in Word because I'm a Word girl. Although I'm getting ticked off at Word, so I might be finding something else to use. Lloyd says, I actually didn't realize it was live. Your videos pop in my YouTube feed. I was going to save it for tomorrow. Sadly, I have children to feed now. Well, I hope you get to see it before too long, Lloyd. And yes, keep those children fed. They get especially unruly when they're unfed. So you don't want that. I parsed that. Don't worry. I understood what you meant. All right. Bye, Lloyd. We'll see you later. How I do the releases. Okay, that's what I was guessing. But I think that makes a ton of sense to. I think it actually makes a ton of sense for us to reassess how we do our releases all the time, and always be thinking like, is there a different way I could release this? Are there other avenues? Should I be using a Kickstarter for every release? Should I be doing a Kickstarter for book one of every new series? Should I be doing, should I be trying to do simultaneous audiobook and ebook releases? Probably not for most of us, but some people maybe you should be thinking about doing that. I know some authors who every week in their weekly newsletter, they send out what they wrote. So people are actually getting the book released to them that way. And then when it's done, they can read it all in one shot. And some people read it piecemeal, and some people read it all in one shot, and some people read it in both. There's all sorts of different ways we can change how we release our books. And some of it is things that cost money, and some of it are things that are entirely free. So lots of things to think about. Amy confirms that Vellum makes box sets, omnibuses super easy. No experience with Atticus. And we all agree they're actually called omnibuses, right? The box set has to have a box. I'm sorry. If you do one with Book Vault that has a box, then you have a box set. I'll acknowledge that. So yeah, I think that's all that me and my voice can do. It's like really starting to fail me here. I'm gonna need to go get some liquid to drink before writing sprints. But for those of you who are keen, we do live writing sprints a couple times a week, and there's going to be one on YouTube on the Mallory Cooper channel in 15 minutes. So I invite you guys to come to that and hang out. Also, this Sunday was going to be the class in school where I take an author that I'm not super familiar with and then make a ton of ads for them and walk through my thought process on how I do everything and how I make all my assessments. Um, that's going to be moved just because we're kind of like in holiday weekend phase, and a lot of people actually don't seem to attend weekend webinars. So we're going to be moving that into midweek, I think around the 10th of July, and we'll be doing it there. So that's awesome, Pippa. Yeah, I saw Pippa says Book Vault in the UK is now doing box sets. I'm in the process of setting one up. I saw at 20 books they had some examples of what they looked like, and they looked super cool. So I think it says box probably Monica or for Monique on Vellum just because it's the common parlance. But brick by brick, I'm going to change everybody to say omnibus because that's what it is. We'll go through it before I sign off. We'll go through it. Collection is a grouping of non-connected stories by a singular author. So a bunch of short stories that you might have by one author is a collection. Multi-author is an anthology. Omnibus is a bunch of books that are in one series combined into one volume, and a box is a physical thing that has a box. All right, with that bit of pedantry out of my system, I'm going to go and get a drink before diving into sprints, which now start in 12 minutes, same bat time, same bat channel, at least on the YouTube side, youtube.com/Mallory Cooper. You can come hang out and sprint. All right, folks, it has been a slice chatting with all of you. I will see you. Well, not sure if I'm going to see you next week, actually, because we're kind of doing some vacation-y, some staycation-y stuff next week. But happy Canada Day and happy Independence Day to everyone. And I'll see you next time. Ciao.